chief ethics officer of the Justice Department, asking him to issue guidelines. Should Whitaker recuse himself?
Matt Whitaker immediately, one of our first orders of business will be, if necessary, to subpoena him.
We are going to need to ruthlessly prioritize on the Intel Committee, and we've already started that process.
Democrats right out of the gate on Sunday pledging to unleash what the media are calling an investigation onslaught into the Trump administration. Here with analysis, Professor Jonathan Turley. He, of course, a constitutional law professor at George Washington University. As you can see today, he's down in Dallas. So, Professor, are you surprised that the Democrats wasted no time in announcing, you know what, we're going to start digging, and we're going to start digging soon?
No, they campaigned on this promise that they would hit the president and the administration with a storm of subpoenas. Right. This is really going to answer that Zen-like question of one hand clapping. You know, they control one house, but that's enough to bring in these individuals into oversight committees. And there's an obvious interest in building a case for impeachment. It's just they don't really have the impeachment grounds. I'm here in Dallas to debate CNN's Jeff Toobin on impeachment. That is the subject that everyone is talking about. I just don't believe that they have enough right now to make out a single article of impeachment.
And you say, you told me in the commercial, Mr. Toobin's going to suggest that impeachment is political, and you disagree with that.
The framers viewed this as a legal standard. They wanted to make it difficult. It is not a court of law technically, but it has standards. It's very easy to say, oh, this is just a political judgment, because it releases these members to just vote their political interests. That's not what the framers intended.
You know, when you look at how the campaign ran over the last year, we heard a lot from Maxine Waters over a period of time talking about impeach, but then the party leaders were like, yeah, let's back away from that. If the people are going to put us in power, they want us to try to get stuff done. And now we see all these committees that are talking about hearings.
That's right. And, you know, this is what the framers were afraid of. Impeachment's not supposed to be a recreational exercise. It's not supposed to be something that you do to please your base. It's a very serious and disruptive and dysfunctional element to introduce into our system. The chances that Donald Trump will be impeached are virtually nil at this point. So first they're going to throw out a net and try to find any possible evidence that they can make out an impeachable offense. They don't have it right now. But when you look at the range and scope of the suggested investigations, it's really breathtaking.
Well, let's see what happens. All right, Professor, thank you very much.
That were upset that there was a gun in the picture, and you really thought of all the details. You had the leg lamp, you had the gun, you had the glasses, and the outfit, obviously. What'd you say?
I said it wouldn't have been complete without them.
I know. So what were your responses to all the critics that were upset with you for having the gun?
Honestly, you know, without the gun, it wouldn't have been the movie. So, you know, I agree with Amy that they probably just didn't understand the movie, and it was probably a little bit of misunderstanding. But it was still really exciting for us to see a movie kind of come to life in a newborn shoot.
All right, so you do it again. You don't regret it?
Not at all. I would totally do it again.
And Amy, I understand you have some ideas for next year already. You're already thinking about that?
I am. I'm always thinking.
What are your ideas?
I will be sure to post it when I have it finished.
We'll have to wait another year?
Probably. Take some time to plan it all out.
Adria, what was your husband's reaction?
Both of us were just we showed up to the studio and we saw the set up, and we were both just in shock and in awe at the same time. We were so excited, and then obviously the reaction on social media, we were a little, we knew that some people would probably be or have an opinion about the little toy gun, but honestly, we were both just still so amazed that we were able to bring something to life like we did. So.
Well, tell me about Liam. Is this your first child?
This is our second. We have a 4-year-old at home, a big sister, Alex. She is obsessed with her little brother. So he's going to probably be dressed up a lot like this as he grows up.
So sweet.
We might have to take his picture again.
How's she doing? How's she doing having a baby brother at home?
She loves it. She's, obviously any 4-year-old is going to have her moments, but she really does love him a lot.
Isn't it the best to have a baby again? That's so sweet. Amy, where'd you find that toy gun that was so small?
I wanted it to be perfect and, small enough that it would get the effect out there but not be controversial. Here we are. But I think, it's obviously not a real one, so I was very particular about that, but I wanted it to be realistic enough to make the photo effective. So I did find his name is Ruben. I'm not real sure how to pronounce his name, but I put it on my post. And he hand makes them. So I found him just by chance, and I'm glad that I did because it made for the perfect little thing to add to the photo.
Well, Adria says she doesn't regret taking the picture. How about you, Amy? Would you do it again?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And what's your website if people want to go on and find out more information about how they can hire you?
You can go to www.coffeecreekstudio.com. I also have my Facebook page, which is
Others Today. Back to you.
Absolutely.
All right, JD, thank you very much.
Okay.
And so Santa Ana wins. Amazing. 70 miles per hour.
You just worked so hard your whole life to build what you have and then to see these houses and then all these deaths. All right, let's hand it up to Jillian, who has some more headlines for us. Hey, Jillian.
And that's right. Good morning. Vice President Mike Pence has a very powerful Veterans Day message. In a Fox News op-ed, he writes, quote, "Veterans have no better friend than President Trump. This president and our administration understand that veterans' benefits are not entitlements, they're earned." The vice president also writes how the administration is committed to helping veterans by doing things like reforming health care and implementing the Whistleblower and Protection Act. We haven't seen the last of candidate Hillary Clinton. That's according to one of her former aides. In a Wall Street Journal op-ed, Mark Penn writes, quote, "True to her name, Mrs. Clinton will fight this out until the last dog dies. You can expect her to run for president once again." Penn will join us live next hour. But we just heard from former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino, who worked with Clinton. He says he's not surprised.
If she doesn't have power, her whole life revolves around being that person in charge. She needs it. She wants it. She can't lose. And listen, I would not, don't sleep on this. Don't fall asleep on Hillary. I get it that it's kind of become a running joke.
Last month, Clinton admitted she'd like to be president. Legendary guitarist Joe Perry is alert and responsive after collapsing backstage just minutes after performing with Billy Joel. Paramedics rushing the Aerosmith rocker to the hospital with shortness of breath in New York City. The 68-year-old is expected to return to the road later this month. So your coworkers probably want you to stop giving it 110% at work. A survey finds it's the most cringe-worthy office phrase.
With every decision you make, is this good for the company?
Blue sky thinking, low-hanging fruit, and Synergize also top the list of the most annoying things people say at work. That's according to a poll at an IP Expo in London. Let us know what you think. Send an email to friends@foxnews.com. Back to you.
Do you have one that you hate, Jillian?
I don't think so, actually.
What about "It's not my job"?
Not my table, not my station.
Right.
There's a lot of that.
There's a lot. I don't know. I don't have one.
Right.
Yeah, don't you love that? I'll go get your waiter.
Yeah.
Please just get me a water.
All right. Coming up on this Monday, ICE wanted this illegal immigrant deported, but a Sanctuary County released him instead. Now he's been charged with a triple murder. How does this keep happening? We're going to talk about that.
Some say it's not a big deal. Really? Plus, the media says Republican concerns about the Florida recount are just conspiracy theories. But our next guest says if that's the case, why did a judge just say those concerns are real?
Truth.
Managing editor for Olympic Media, Katie Fraites joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning, guys.
You know, Katie, I look at another state like Wisconsin where the governor, Scott Walker, was ousted. On election night, he could have demanded a recount. It was tens of thousands of votes. And he runs the state, obviously, as governor, so he could try to game it. But he said, you know what? I lost fair and square. I'm out. He did the right thing. Why in Florida do we have all this, what seems like gaming of the system?
Well, I think obviously because this race does seem to be a little bit closer, but on top of this, we have to focus on Brenda Snipes. So she does Broward County. She is the commissioner for these elections, and she has had a long history of accidents and mistakes. In 2016, she did this to a Democratic opponent, a challenger to Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And even Tim Canova, he said that this seemed very suspicious. She had a taped deposition where she admitted to destroying ballots. This woman has a very long history in this county and Palm Beach as well, these two counties where we're seeing this issue in Florida of very, very suspicious behavior. So I don't understand how Democrats can look at this and say, oh, yeah, it's just a conspiracy. Republicans are just upset.
So, Katie, the law says all the mail-in votes and all the absentee ballots, they have to be accounted for within 30 minutes of the polls closing. So everyone mails them in, they have to be counted, and then that's it. But on Tuesday, Brenda Snipes, the supervisor of elections for Broward County, she said that there were 634,000 votes that were cast. Then on Thursday, a few days later, she changed that to 840 ballots had been cast. Why are we discovering new votes all of a sudden?
Well, right. That's always the thing, isn't it? They find these boxes of undiscovered ballots always after time is up. And it's not like they're ever mixed ballots. It's not like they're all Republican. They all only seem to be these mysterious Democratic write-ins that people have that help their candidate. She is a Democrat, and it's so suspicious. I don't understand how the media can look at this and scoff. There's laws that are being broken, and maybe it's not intentional, but these laws are being broken over and over and over again. And two of Rick Scott's lawsuits have a judge ruled in favor of those lawsuits against Brenda Snipes and Susan Butcher in Palm Beach County. So if that's not an indication that this is not a conspiracy, I don't know what is.
Katie, the president tweeted this out.
Right.
Kind of on the heels of what Ainsley was talking about. Rick Scott was up by 50,000 votes on Election Day. Now they found many votes, and he's only up 15,000 votes. The Broward effect. How come they never find Republican votes? All right, well, that's his point. But a moment ago, you said all these laws are being broken. What laws are being broken?
So we have a few things that are going on. Of course, as you guys said previously, there is a certain deadline where ballots have to be counted by. There's reporting
Thursday at 3
deadlines.
o'clock.
Yes, and you have to, every 30 minutes, you're supposed to be reporting in the results as you go. She's had issues beforehand, as I said, where they reported results a few years ago earlier than the polls closing. There's been a systematic history with Brenda Snipes of breaking laws. And again, there's an over ballot and under ballot issue that's occurred in Palm Beach, which is one of these lawsuits. And then also with Brenda Snipes, she refuses to release voter information or let a commission come in to oversee the process, which is the commission's job.
But Katie, given all of these problems, and in the case of Brenda Snipes, who you've mentioned several times, she's previously been caught destroying ballots, doing things that are improper. Republicans probably regret they didn't do something about this. Rick Scott has been the governor for 2 terms.
Absolutely, and I think there is perhaps some buyer's remorse now on Republicans' end. I mean, she was brought in to replace a supervisor before her who was taken out on less than wonderful circumstances, on some improprieties on that, and she seems to be following this exact same trend. So I'm not sure why Republicans didn't focus on this beforehand, perhaps just because there was not as egregious of an issue that we're seeing right now, but she has to go. Brenda Snipes cannot be overseeing anything in any county ever again.
All right. Katie Freitz, thanks for being with us.
Appreciate it. Still ahead. Former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich is here live talking about the new Congress.
And one veterans group's about to unveil a big
important thing to do. Joining me now, NS2 Serves Chairman General John Campbell, U.S. Army veteran, and NS2 Serves graduate William Velasquez Morales. We have the Vice President of Shell Lubricants, Jim McCormick, as well. Gentlemen, you're here for a very special reveal, I'd like to say. But General, why don't you start out by telling me what exactly the organization does?
Well, thanks, Ed. 300,000 veterans transition out of the military every year, so we got to look at how we can impact them, help them find some jobs. So about 4 years ago, Mark Testonio, President and CEO of SAP NS2, started NS2 Serves, and it takes 9/11 veterans. It puts them through IT training, 8, 10, or 12 weeks, and then we guarantee them a job when they get out. It's life-changing.
How important is this? Because when veterans make that transition from the battlefield to business, it can be difficult. We hear about the scourge of suicide among veterans, the scourge of homelessness that we also want to address. But talk about that transition home.
The transition is a little bit difficult, trying to find a good career with NS2 that give us the opportunity to advance, to give a stable finance for your household, also an amazing career, and you're blessed.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're blessed. Your company helps out?
Absolutely. So Shell Lubricants has a deep background in giving back to our communities, and we got involved with NS2 Serves early on, but we began to see the large number of applicants, and we couldn't house all of them, couldn't bring them all in. So we began to think, what could we do to create awareness? We sat down with Tommy Pike Customs, great partner to Shell, and we created this idea for the sole purpose of building awareness to get more companies, more individuals involved, so we get more stories and experiences like Will.
Now, I got to tease Kilmeade because I understand that he screwed up your name. Now, you got it on the hat.
I know, I wore this.
He's not here, so he can't defend himself.
I wore for Brian because he said B-52, I think. NS2 Serves.
NS2 Serves has a big
Brian,
reveal.
We love you.
We love Brian. We have a monster reveal right here on Fox and Friends. So I'll let you do the honors.
Before
Tell me what it is.
Yeah, so www.ns2serves.org. Testimonials of our veterans after they've gone through is pretty incredible. We're taking applications now for the next class. We couldn't do it without our sponsors like Shell, Tommy Pike as well. But we need other corporations to take up this model. 300,000 veterans each year. We can do much better for our veterans. What we're going to do today is we're going to unveil a Jeep that Shell here and Tommy Pike has taken, and it's pretty fantastic.
Is
we're
there any doubt that he's a general? He just takes command. I want to reveal. No. Here's what we're doing.
We're going to take this around the country and get awareness for NS2 Serves.
Let's start it right here. Let's have the big reveal.
Tommy, you got to help me out here.
Whoa! The NS2 Serves Jeep. Look at that. That is really awesome. Tell us where it's headed.
So this is going to go all over the country. Going to go to trade shows. It's going to go to car shows, and then probably in the May time frame, we're going to auction this thing off, and the proceeds will go to NS2 Serves. But Tommy Pike tells a story with this thing. The digits here are boots to suits. The inside of this thing is phenomenal. It's absolutely incredible. So thanks to Shell, thanks to Tommy Pike, and the rest of the folks that support NS2 Serves.
Check it out online so you can eventually bid on this wonderful vehicle, but also so you can help this really terrific organization. NS2 Serves. Kill me. That's what it's called. Gentlemen, thanks for coming.
Thanks, man.
All right, what a wonderful cause. The president, meanwhile, tweeting moments ago about the Florida recount as it enters day 2. Here's a live look at Broward County. We will take you there in mere moments. And Democrats don't even have control of the House yet officially, but they've already got a new strategy. It's called investigate, investigate, investigate. The former House Speaker Newt Gingrich is here to react.
One of your family members is deployed or serving our country. We are so blessed to live in this great country.
Absolutely. Ainsley's so nice. She saw some people outside in the cold and said, come on, Ed, let's go out there. Well, you were doing an interview a little while ago, and we greeted some folks out on 6th Avenue, and they were like, hey, where's the third one? I said, he's inside working. If we're out on 6th Avenue, he's got to work. Steve is his name.
Somebody's got to talk. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us on this Veterans Day. Meanwhile, all eyes are on the Sunshine State, where the election recount is happening right this moment.
That's right. Moments ago, the president weighed in on this. He tweeted, the Florida election should be called in favor of Rick Scott and Ron DeSantis, and that large numbers of new ballots showed up out of nowhere, and many ballots are missing or forged. An honest vote count is no longer possible. Ballots massively infected must go with election night.
Well, our man on the scene is Griff Jenkins. He's live in Broward County with an update. Griff, good morning.
Good morning, guys. The president's tweet referring to the number of ballots here in Broward County that is in question. Now, just beyond me is the canvassing board. The supervisor of elections, Brenda Snipes, Dr. Brenda Snipes, was in the room just moments ago. Then she went in the actual room where the machines are. There's 10 to begin with. Now there's 2 new ones that came in from Tallahassee around 4 a.m. And what you see are the officials in there calibrating that new machine so they can be put into order. But it is Governor Scott's lawsuit filed yesterday that really goes into detail over charging Brenda Snipes over her failure to account for the number of ballots. So while this is confusing, let me quickly try and explain. They're trying to separate the first page of every ballot and get a count on the number of ballots cast before they actually run the machines again and get a total tally of exactly how people voted. That number of the number of ballots cast will determine whether or not it plays to the allegations against Brenda Snipes. We spoke with the Democrats' attorney and the Republicans' attorney. First, the Democrats' attorney, Mitchell Berger, had this to say about Supervisor Snipes. Take a listen.
Brenda Snipes might be underpersoned and might have too much thrust upon her suddenly. I don't think there's anyone who thinks she is dishonest or lacks integrity.
Although I had a moment to talk with Bill Scheer, the Republicans' attorney, and asked him how much confidence he has in Supervisor Snipes. Here's what he had to say.
0.
I have zero from the beginning. I've been involved with her and her operation and the embarrassment that she causes to Broward County. You know, it's Florida because of what the way she runs her operation.
Also this morning, yesterday, a letter from Attorney General Pam Bondi calling on the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to investigate the matter here. They initially refused to do so. As far as the timeline goes, guys, just focus on Thursday. That's a deadline for the second unofficial returns to come in. But before then, we may get that final number of the votes that were taken here, and that is going to be a big issue. We think that may come as early as this evening. Guys?
Get used to Griff's golf voice. It sounds like he's at the Masters because he's inside the room. He might be there for a while.
Hey, Griff, going back to what the president tweeted that we led with, and he's talking about the thousands of ballots coming in. And of course, Rick Scott yesterday said they came up with 93,000 votes after election night. But the president said many ballots are missing or forged. Regarding the forged part, any idea what he's talking about?
Sure. Dr. Snipes here has apparently come clean on the fact that there were some illegal and legal votes cast. That's what, of course, Governor Scott was talking about in the last hit. But when we get to the bottom of all this, we're going to find out whether or not the total number of votes equals that which they believe was taken. If that number is much higher, you're going to see the Republican attorneys throwing all sorts of protests here in this room because of that number of ballots, which may or may not be about what they believe to be just over 700,000. Additionally, I can tell you that a lot of people are watching to see exactly how these ballots will be hand counted, because it is likely that the second unofficial number that will come Thursday is going to be under that 0.25% point. So we're going to get an inspection of all of the ballots here.
All right,
guys.
Griff Jenkins, appreciate the reporting. One small example, but an important one that illustrates what he's talking about. Broward officials at one point were told, and they've admitted, found 22 absentee ballots that had been rejected. I don't know if they were forged, something wrong. They were disqualified. But then we learned they were mixed in with 205 that were valid.
We can't tell the difference.
They can't tell the difference. So there's at least 22 votes that should not be there. That's one small example.
Well, right now, what separates these individuals? Thousands of votes. So maybe the 22 won't matter, but it's just
it may add
shocking.
up. 22 here, 35
Every
there.
vote counts, right? It's shocking, though, that they would just put them back in the stack. There's so many questions here. Why are they just discovering all these new votes? After the polls closed, they have 30 minutes to report all of the absentee or mail-in ballots. But then days later, they reported more that they say had been missing. So how does this happen? We don't know. Something needs to be fixed, though, down in this area, because it continuously happens, it seems.
Well, and Florida, of course, famous for something crazy that happened regarding ballots back in 2000. This is one of the reasons Rick Scott was trying to sue, saying, okay, Broward County, tell us how many votes were cast. And they would not do that. We had the governor on just about an hour ago, and he's looking at all the stuff that has happened so far, and he's calling on Senator Nelson, quit now. Watch.
It's one of the reasons why we filed the lawsuit yesterday, to make sure all these ballots are impounded, that Florida Department of Law Enforcement or sheriffs watch the ballots and watch the machines. There's no issues going forward. What Bill Nelson needs to do now is what he would be asking me to do if I had lost the election, is say, look, the election happened, let's go forward. But he's not. He's just a pure sore loser trying to steal an election. We won. We're going to win the recount because it's never been overturned before. I'm going to Washington as the next Florida senator. I've got a whole agenda how to make Washington a better place for all of us.
Well, another important example, over the weekend we learned that one of the more junior Democratic attorneys who was working down there in Florida on behalf of Senator Nelson said in court, there's a transcript of this, that they wanted to count non-citizens, some of their ballots, even though clearly that would violate the law, because non-citizens cannot vote in Florida or anywhere else. At least they're not supposed
clarified,
to.
Right?
Now, a more senior lawyer, Mark Elias, said, we get it, that would break the law, that was a mistake. However, Governor Scott is demanding answers.
First off, we won by 57,000 votes that night. So we know that since then, just in these two counties, 93,000 new votes showed up. How'd that happen? We know that Brenda Snipes said that ballots that she acknowledged, knows that they were illegal, she mixed them in with legal ballots. We know that happened. I want to make sure there's a free and fair election, but there's laws. Comply with the laws. It's supposed to prevent fraud.
And the Attorney General Pam Bondi has sent letters to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and state election chief. Let's keep an eye out for any sort of fraud. And our next guest is pointing fingers at the Democrats, claiming their dishonesty while trying to steal elections, quote, threatens the very fabric of our country.
That was the title of his op-ed. Former House Speaker and Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich joins us now with more. Good morning to you, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
So why do you think
Broward County... Look, Broward County is a case study. I was with Karl Rove over the weekend. Karl, of course, working for President George W. Bush, was right in the middle of the hanging Chad Broward County effort to steal Florida in the presidential race in 2000, which ultimately went to the Supreme Court. He pointed out that the lawyer who'd been involved in stealing Norm Coleman's seat in Minnesota for Al Franken is the same lawyer who's now come into Florida using the same techniques. Two examples. They argued, this is on the record, they argued that non-citizens' votes should count, which is clearly illegal. They also have in Broward County, the registrar happened to not realize that she had brought together a group of already discounted bad ballots and put them in with a group of good ballots, and she really didn't want to cheat the good ballots, so she's going to count all the ballots. Now, at what point do you start saying to yourself, this is the second time she's done this? I think Governor Scott listed 12 different examples where she has broken Florida law. And notice about the so-called recount. She did not allow anyone in to watch what they were doing. They did everything in secret. So we have no idea to what extent they were either manufacturing ballots, artificially destroying Republican ballots. All this was done in secret in total violation of Florida law. So this is not a question we need better laws. This is a question where you have to look at people who are breaking the law.
How can you do that and get away with it? Why aren't you held accountable if this is true?
Look, I don't understand it. I mean, I don't understand how the very same person in 2000 and now in 2018 can be in the middle of massive violations and not have some attorney step in and file a suit. But here's the game they're playing in Florida linguistically. They're saying, we don't actually have proof of fraud because she won't let anybody in to look at the ballots, so we can't prove that she actually stole them. If you went to a bank and it had $500,000 missing, your first thought wouldn't be, gee, I'll bet they're really bad at math.
Yeah.
And then your first thought would be, is somebody stealing it?
Well, Mr. Speaker, why do Democrats keep saying it's a great slogan, count all the votes, but shouldn't it be count all the legitimate votes?
Well, because if you only count all the legitimate votes, they lose. Somewhere between manufacturing ballots, in a number of these cases, you suddenly have an entire box of votes. I think this time it showed up in a school pantry or something, and they went, oh my goodness, look here, there's a whole box of ballots. I wonder how they got here. I don't know, but we don't want to deny them the right to vote. We once had a famous case in Georgia in 1948 where the candidate for governor had died, and his son was a write-in candidate. And in his home county, more people voted than lived in the county. And the Atlanta Journal won a Pulitzer Prize. They went down and interviewed people. They said, well, we knew that Sally had moved to Macon 40 years ago, but we knew how Sally would have voted. And we didn't want to trouble her to have to drive all the way home. So we just voted for her. Wow. That's the kind of attitude. It's a long tradition of the Democratic Party, which stole both Illinois and Texas in 1960. And if they can get away with it, they will. It's about power. It's not about the system.
The eyes of the world are on Florida. Let's see what happens. The machine recount will be concluded by 3 o'clock on Thursday. Meanwhile, Mr. Speaker, when the new Congress convenes, we don't know who's going to be Speaker then. Some are suggesting it's probably going to be Nancy Pelosi, but we do know one thing for sure. There are going to be a lot of investigations. We've heard Democrats in the past talk about, impeachment possibilities, but they're going to look at everything regarding this president and his administration to see if they did anything wrong. That shouldn't surprise you, should it?
No, and I think the Democrats run a real risk, as Senator McConnell has pointed out. I mean, if the number one characteristic of the Democratic Party becomes destroy Trump, I suspect the average American will think that's pretty stupid, because they would actually like the Congress and the president to work on health care, to work on the economy, to work on a whole range of issues other than just getting involved in this kind of negativity. And I can say in 1997-98, we got sucked into going after Bill Clinton in a way which was our fault. That I think ultimately was not to the advantage of the Republican Party, because people just said they're tired of it. There's no possibility that the U.S. Senate is going to convict the president. So any effort at impeachment is an act of pure political partisanship that is negative for the country and has no positive possible outcome.
All right. That'll have to be the final word. Mr. Speaker, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Good to be with you.
All right. Straight ahead on this Monday, ICE wanted this illegal immigrant deported, but a sanctuary county released him instead, and now he has been charged with triple murder. How does that...
Good morning. You've got a pretty interesting op-ed in the Wall Street Journal with Andrew Stein. Why don't you lay out the case why you think Hillary Clinton will get into this 2020 battle?
Well, as you know, officially now the parlor game of who's going to be the 2020 nominee begins today. And I think don't underestimate Hillary's positioning to run again. She's got a 75% approval among Democrats. She's positioned herself with the core of the Democratic base. A lot of Democrats think she was unfairly denied winning the last presidential race. And I think she's going to sit back, see how this develops. You've already seen what happened when some of the potential nominees stood up at the Kavanaugh hearing and they looked like amateurs. She's a pro and she learns, and Clintons never stop until they get where they want to go, and I say don't count her out, and if she gets in, she will be quite formidable.
And you say, Mark, in the pages of the Wall Street Journal, she will run maybe not at first when the legions of Senate Democrats make the announcements, but definitely by the time the primaries are in full swing. Is it thinking that, everybody will come out with a burst of publicity and then they'll just fade, and then at the last minute, she'll come in and she'll go, hey, wait a minute, I can save this party, I'm the only true Democrat here?
Well, I think, as every Democratic potential nominee will learn, the year that is the run-up to the first primary is the most miserable year of presidential campaigning. And I think she'll try to skip as much of that as possible. Bill Clinton got in late. I think even John F. Kennedy got in late. And I think that if she does go, it will be because no one emerges as a clear front runner. Right. It looks like the party is splintered in lots of different ways, and she can come in, re-energize the core of the Democratic base, take the nomination, and have the biggest rematch in history with probably the biggest voter turnout in history based on that.
You brought up the Democrats like her, 75% approval rating. The current administration, this president, has a very high approval rating amongst Republicans. What do you think it would look like if they did run against each other again?
Well, interestingly, they have almost the same images nationally. Right now, I think that on a personal favorable basis, the president is at about 40. She's at about 40. It's just a different 40% of the country, right? Leaving that 20% in the middle again to fight this out. And both of them have 80, 90% ratings among their bases. So they have mirror opposite identifications, and you would see this rematch. Presumably she would learn that maybe she could take back some of those Midwestern voters if this is what comes to pass. President Trump, I think, would find that she's a much more formidable second-time opponent. We'll see what actually happens, but I think this is pretty reasonable as speculation of what could very well happen.
Well,
here.
Speculation, but Kellyanne Conway has already tweeted basically, please let this be true.
Oh, I don't think she really wants it to be true. No, I think they want to run against Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. I think Hillary Clinton would be a lot more formidable.
What about
second
Biden?
time around.
Biden, a lot of Democrats like Biden.
Biden is a strong, I think, potential nominee. He's about 30%.
Her lead in Arizona's Senate race over Republican Martha McSally. And we're now learning that the man tasked with overseeing the vote count in the state's largest county, Adrian Fonts, is an outspoken Bernie Sanders supporter and apparently represented the ringleader in the Fast and Furious scandal. Here to weigh in, constitutional law attorney and director of public policy for the James Dobson Family Institute, Jenna Ellis, joins us today from D.C. Jenna, good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve.
So do you have a problem with this guy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there is clear bias, and this should wake up every conservative. Democrats and liberals view our system as simply a way to manipulate a politically biased outcome rather than respecting the fact that our system is built upon a process that is politically neutral. So my question is, why are political activists like Fonts here in these critical roles that are determining votes? And so it's so remarkable that whenever we have a recount, the only votes that we happen to find are Democrat. And so something is clearly wrong with the process.
Okay.
And
so, Jenna, but what are the problems?
Well, the problems here is that there's no real accountability. And so when you have something like this that undermines the integrity of our election process, and we're finding that, Democrats who have gone on record that they have clear political bias are now in these positions of authority to make determinations for voting outcomes, that's a problem. Because you look at, for example, the judicial branch, where you have codes of ethics of judicial integrity that judges have to remain politically neutral and unbiased. Sure. But then you have people who are on record in these types of counties that have, as recently as 2016, this man was openly supporting Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. And so even if there is, even if we don't have anything that shows fraud, there is at least a strong skepticism here, and we need to have and we need to have election integrity to make sure that we understand what exactly is going on in the process and make sure that not every vote counts, every legal vote counts. Because at this point, Steve, in the 2020 election, Republicans are going to have 2 votes for every one single real Democratic vote if we're even going to break even. And that's unacceptable in our election system.
Well, I would be interested to see if there is any actual fraud proven out there. And we'll know perhaps in a week or so. All right, Jenna Ellis, we thank you very much for joining us live.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. Meanwhile, country singer Jared Neiman is here to honor our nation's heroes today on Veterans Day. He's going to perform live. Good morning to you guys. But first, let's check in with Bill Hemmer for a preview of what happens on the channel in 12 minutes.
You keeping Ed under control down there?
Yes, sir.
Good luck with that. What a story playing out in California. The sun is just breaking there this morning as we are live on the fire lines to bring you the latest from there. Florida's at the heart of it again, where those critical races stand today, and Democrats in the House set their sights on a subpoena party. Great lineup coming up to follow 12 minutes from now. Join Sandra and me at the top of the hour. Brand new week at 9 to noon.